Welcome to Secrets Out Idaho. Each week, we let you in on the secrets of Southern Idaho and speak to the people who make it such a unique, hidden gem. I'm your host, Connie Stouffer.
On today's episode, we'll hear about an unexpected energy source sitting in everyone's garbage and how each of us can reduce our footprint when we speak to Southern Idaho Solid Waste CEO, Josh Bartlome. He'll not only share what happens to your recyclables, but what he loves about Southern Idaho and a surprising love story.
Josh Bartlome, thank you so much for joining me on this show. I'm really excited to talk to you and learn more about what you do in the community. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. So I'm going to start by having you tell me a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Josh Bartlome. I was born here in Twin Falls and kind of raised in two communities. I was raised in Rupert and Twin Falls. So my mom lived here. My dad lived in Rupert. I attended Minico High School. I graduated from Minico High School. And I went up on a baseball scholarship to Washington State University. Played baseball up there for a couple years. Came back to the area. Went to CSI. I started out in the workforce after college. And I helped a gentleman run a business putting security gates together. Mainly up in the Sun Valley area, but down here in the Magic Valley as well. And during that time, I started to create a pretty good relationship with my neighbor. My neighbor happened to be in my position at the time, and there was an opening for an environmental specialist position. And he said, "Hey, we've got this position. Why don't you come and apply for it?" So I've been with Southern Idaho Solid Waste since 2006, and I've been the director since 2011. And we love the community. Having the ability to grow up in two different communities in South Central Idaho kind of gave me the ability to experience as much as you could. So I had a great time growing up in the area, and I'm fortunate to raise my kids up in the area now.
Awesome. So tell me kind of the different experiences growing up in Twin Falls versus Rupert as a kid. What was kind of the difference there?
So the biggest thing was I lived in Rupert for most of my time, and I grew up out there, from second grade on, and it's a big ag community. So all of my friends were farmers for the most part, and we'd go out on the farm and we'd do stuff that we probably shouldn't with four-wheelers and motorcycles and probably driving before you should, but it's a farm. You're out there helping your friends work and move pipelines and do stuff like that. So it was a real good experience growing up in Rupert. But then when you'd come over to Twin Falls, you didn't have the ag-based community. You had a little bit more of the city life than I had in Rupert. So it was fun to be able to come and see, everything that Twin Falls had to offer. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit bigger. There's only about 15,000 people in Rupert. There's about 50,000 people here. So you get two different communities, and I didn't get as much of the outdoor stuff here in Twin Falls as I did on the farms. Mm-hmm. But we had a lot of fun playing baseball growing up in this community. This is a real tight community for sports, and you get in at a young age, all of the same people. So I think something that was really good was when you start to mingle with people from Twin Falls at a young age, and you progress in baseball, like I was. You play the people against Twin Falls, mm-hmm. and you're pitted against them, but it's kind of a camaraderie, and you get together and you know each other. So that was fun growing up, and having two sets of friends, and it was great.
Yeah, I bet. So now I want to talk a little bit about your career in solid waste. I've learned a little bit more about it just talking with you and having a chance to meet with you and learn about the neat things that are going on out there. And I think the average person doesn't know what happens to their garbage once they put it in their bin and it's hauled away. So I want you to just talk a little bit about what you guys do out at Solid Waste there and what people may not realize about the stream kind of their stuff once they get rid of it and where it goes.
Right. So Southern Idaho Solid Waste is a special district of government. It's owned by 7 different counties. So we are a solid waste district. What we did is back in the late 80s, they came up with what we call Subtitle D requirements, which requires you to line your landfills. And when we did that, that was a very big expense for the counties around here. So my predecessor went out and was working with the health district at the time, and they wanted to produced some legislation that allowed counties to combine together and take advantage of the economies of scale. And that's what we've done. So we handle every aspect of solid waste disposal. After somebody picks it up from your household, they bring it to one of our facilities. So we have 15 facilities in 7 different counties. We service about 11,000 square miles. We service about 250,000 people. We have a regional landfill. Out at the landfill, we have a landfill gas to energy facility, which when landfills or waste starts to decompose, it starts to create a landfill gas. So right now we are actually converting that gas into electricity for about 2,000 homes right now. We do a lot with solid waste, and we try not to be out in the news, because when you hear about landfills, typically it's about bad news, contamination or something. We really strive to go above and beyond our environmental regulations. Our big thing is we live in the communities, we breathe the air, we drink the water. We want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. And we've got a really good culture in-house where our employees are taking pride in what they do. And we try to save the district as much money as we can. So we do a lot of projects in-house. And that has, created a little bit more pride and ownership in what we do out at the landfill. So we do all aspects of solid waste disposal once it's picked up from your house. And we're the only solid waste district in the state. And we've got the lowest tipping fees in the state and also the nation right now. So that's something that we want to continue to build on and move into the future and provide a good service for the community.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit more about the gas to energy project? 'Cause I thought that was so exciting. I feel a little bit less bad when I throw things away, knowing that at least that my items that can decompose are going to be converted into gas. Can you tell a little bit about that project?
Yeah, so that was a real good project for Southern Idaho Solid Waste. It was probably one of the biggest accomplishments I've been a part of. It was a 4-year process, and there's a lot of moving parts when you talk about a project that size. But essentially, we have a naturally occurring resource at the landfill. When you start to decompose the waste, it starts to produce the gas. And instead of emitting that into the atmosphere or collecting it and deconstructing that gas, we sat at the board, in the boardroom for probably 6 months to a year. And all of our board members, who are one county commissioner from each of the counties who owns us, we started to get on this conversation about, look, we've got something that we could build on here. Why aren't we doing anything with it? What are our options? And one of our board members just kind of made the joking comment that if we had a gold mine underneath the landfill, or if we had an oil reserve, we'd be doing something with it, And
you're sitting there like, we kind of do.
Right. And so they said, what can we do? So we started to research the different technologies, and there's a lot of different things that you can do with your landfill gas. But the best one for us and the standard was a landfill gas to energy facility. So basically what that is we clean the gas up, we collect the gas from the landfill. As soon as we start building the landfill, every 30 foot in elevation, we put in pipeline infrastructure. So we've got perforated pipe going through the landfill. We've got over 60 pipelines going through the landfill. And when we meet an elevation where we can hook up and gas is starting to produce, we collect that gas, we clean it up, and then we send it to the landfill gas to energy facility, which houses 2 locomotive engines. And those locomotive engines have been converted from gas or diesel engines to be powered off of the landfill gas. So we take that landfill gas, it's kind of like a generator that you put gas in, right, when you're camping, except for the gas that we're putting in is actually the landfill gas, and that's starting the engine, and that's starting everything. And then on the engine, there's also a generator. So as you engage the engine, it engages the generator, and we start producing electricity. We put it on the grid, and it's available to the local community for use.
That's amazing. So instead of just emitting gas into the atmosphere, it's now being collected and used to power people's homes. I think that's pretty amazing. So how many homes did you say can power?
So it ranges, on what you read, but it's pretty safe to say that for every megawatt that we produce, you can power about 1,000 small homes. So right now we're at about 2.6 megawatts. So I say around 2,000 homes, but if they're small homes, we could be producing enough electricity for about 2,500 homes. I know that's not huge on the grand scale of something that a big person, would generate, but for us, we're taking something that we would just generally, deconstruct anyway, and we're doing something beneficial with that. So to have a beneficial use project for something that we're creating and could be looked at as a pollution, and we're taking that pollution out of the atmosphere and creating a commodity with electricity, those are the kind of projects that we really like to be a part of and that we get excited about. And we've been running this landfill gas to energy facility for about 1.5 years now. And we've had a lot of great things happen from that. We've learned a lot, but we have continually met our power production rates, and it's been a really good project for the community.
I wouldn't say that 2,000 is a small number. That's a pretty significant number when you figure there's probably on average at least 4 people in a home, and how many. I think that's just amazing, and it's a new project too. So to have that much growth in it, I think is really amazing.
Yeah, it's been really good, and I will say that the project went about as good as you could possibly have a project go, but to always hang your hat on why you're doing it, to clean up the environment and produce we always use beneficial use. This is value added to us. So we really appreciate those types of projects.
So is it it sounds like there was the technology out there, but is it fairly new to Idaho, or how many other places are doing something like this gas to energy project?
So it's not new technology, but there are waves of landfills. So because the regulation started in the early 90s, you had the giant landfills that are accepting 5,000 tons of material a day. You had those guys who were dealing with this type of stuff 10, 15, 20 years before us. So we've had the advantage to look at all of the different technologies that have been used in the solid waste and recycling industry, and we've been able to say, hey, that one's too expensive, that one's inefficient, we can't do that. So what fits best with us? And there are 4 other landfills in the state of Idaho who have a landfill gas to energy facility. Bannock County does it the same way that we did. We set up our projects the same way. And typically you kind of do an RFP to see if anybody has interest for building a facility. And you might get like a 10% revenue share of 20%, something like that. For us, we looked at that and said, look, we've got capable employees of doing this, so why would we have somebody else do it for us? So we took a look at that, and we're recouping all of the benefits. All of the costs are us. We've got the liability as well, but because we've got that staff that's trained and able to do that, we were willing to take that risk, and it's worked out for us really good ever since.
That's awesome. So I wanted to change topics a little bit and talk about recycling. I know some people are really passionate about recycling. Some people are a little apathetic about it. And I think there's been big changes over the last year or so in recycling across the country. And I think some people may not know why. They might just think, well, geez, my community's not picking up plastic anymore, or they're not picking up whatever anymore. And they might just think that that's a local decision. But can you talk to us a little bit about some of those bigger changes in recycling and what that might mean for people, regardless of where they are and where they live?
Yeah, that's a great question. And because I'm in the industry, I see this coming up all across the nation. So I know it's not just a one community problem. A couple years ago, China was taking a lot of our recycled material. I think what's happened is, as Americans, we get into this thing where we call it wishful recycling, where you just want to recycle everything that you do. Well, things can be recycled. It's a matter of how efficient is it, and is it cost effective to recycle it? Well, China kind of experienced that because over years we were sending over recyclable material that was contaminated. We used to have a 5% level for contamination.
Now tell us what contamination is. So that means like lids that can't be recycled, things that aren't cleaned, or is it something else when you mean contamination?
So there's a lot of different things when you talk about contamination. It can be contaminated food. It can be something like the bubble envelopes that you get packages in. that has paper on the outside and it's got bubbled plastic on the inside. Well, you can't separate those two commodities, so that's a contaminated piece of material. Something else that are kind of mixed is pizza boxes. Some material recovery facilities say, hey, we can take those. Others say no.
Because they've got cheese stuck to
They
the
got
inside.
cheese or something. And that may not be the contamination that you're worried about, but they might be excluding some of those because they might attract vectors, rats, birds, stuff like that. So contamination is a big deal, and it can come in many forms of just material that shouldn't go in there. If you can't recycle metal, or if you can't recycle a certain number of plastic, that then becomes a contamination. So it used to be a 5% contamination ratio, and that was pretty easy for a majority of people to meet. But what happened is they started getting higher contamination, which would be maybe a 50% load of solid waste and a 50% load of recycling. And that just happened over the years. So the Chinese government said, look, we can't accept this anymore, and we're going to take a hard line on this. So we're going to move the contamination rate from 5% down to 0.5%. And when that happened, that really changed the dynamics of what we were doing with our recycling programs in the United States. We do have, domestic markets for some of this material, but if you shut off the floodgates to China, then essentially you're flooding your domestic markets for recyclable material as well. So that creates a problem. Then you also have the issue of, how do I clean up my contamination? I've read reports for every 0.5% of contamination that you want to improve on, you have to add an additional $5 million of infrastructure in order to do that.
So that's like equipment to pick through things. It's hiring people to sort and all that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, they have optical sorters. They have, actual human sorters. There's a lot of different ways, but pick lines and anything that you can do to clean up that material. So that's cost prohibitive for a lot of these communities. So now you start to look at what else can we do? What are our options? And I think we're starting to see those right now. So as soon as we were told by China that we can't accept that, then that forces our local communities to take a look at their recycling efforts and say, okay, how long can we do this? If we want to continue to recycle, at what price are we willing to pay? And then what happens if it goes over that? So those are hard questions that everybody is having to ask themselves right now. And, I'm involved with the recycling community as well. And I hear things, I read things. I know of at least 10 processing facilities that have been installed in the United States, which the flow of your recyclable material goes from somebody like us or, curbside to a materials recovery facility. At that facility, they will sort through our recyclable material and they'll ship it out from there. So it is really important to understand where your costs are and where your contamination rates are and how much you're willing to pay. Because we flooded the domestic markets so bad, it's created another issue for us. We don't have processors. So in order to process a recyclable material right now, you've got a lot of processors that are in China. So because we're not shipping our recyclables over there, they don't have the flow or the volume to process that and ship it back.
Right.
So it was a real good thing, Chinese customers would ship their goods to the United States and then we would ship recyclables back.
So there might be an opportunity to bring processors here to process the flow that's being taken care of domestically.
Yeah, if we want to tackle our domestic recycling problem right now, we need to have more materials recovery facilities in the United States, and we have those. We have a lot of those. We could use more. The next step is processing, taking those recyclable materials and putting them back into a virgin form or a usable form. We don't have a lot of those now. They have been coming in over the last couple of years, and I'm hoping within the next 3 or 4 years we'll have more processors. But that's the $1 million question: is when is that gonna be available to us? And unfortunately, I think we're going to continue to face the same issues until we figure out what we're doing internally.
So for the average person at home who has waste every day that they're getting rid of, do you have like some practical tips for people, or just things like this is something that people can do to reduce the amount of non-recyclable stuff that's going into the landfill, or just kind of reduce their waste in general, whether it's recyclable or not, I guess.
Yeah, I think the big thing is everybody knows the 3 R's, right? Reduce, reuse, recycle. But I think where we can have the biggest impact on what's going on is, as a consumer, you have to be conscious about what you're buying. And if you're buying something that's 2 inches by 1 inch and it comes in a 1 foot package, as a consumer, we need to say, look, this is not the best decision I can make right now. And talking to the manufacturers and letting them know that this isn't something that you support, that's the quickest thing. That's the big talk in the industry, is going back to the manufacturers to fix the problem. But it takes everybody, right? Mm-hmm. So we can all make those decisions in our house, and we can hold on to that a little bit longer. One of the things that I like is we go shopping and we get plastic bags like a lot of other people. And those bags are usable, so we try to reuse those bags as long as we can. If we have containers that we could use, we give them to our kids, they put their toys in them. So anything like that you can do to be conscious about it is great.
Give things a little bit longer life instead of just that one trip from the store.
Right.
And there are a number of stores that will take your recyclable bags, because you can't put them in your curbside pickup, but there are a number of stores that will accept them. And then we just talked with the Humanitarian Center. They use plastic bags to repurpose them into like homeless mats and things like that. There's probably resources in most communities that have something like that for some of your recyclable materials that maybe don't get picked up curbside.
Right. And, we are a solid waste district. We have about 250,000 tons of solid waste coming through our facilities each year, but we recycle and we divert about 40 to 50,000 tons as well. So we are a big recycler in the community. And it's something that, even though we focus on solid waste disposal, we're still a big recycle and diversion, partner in the community.
Yeah. So you accept about 250,000 tons and you serve about 250,000 people. So does that mean about the average person's creating a ton of garbage?
No, it's not.
I was like, geez.
You got to take in the industry. That's where a lot of this stuff comes in. So you can look at your households. I think the general household or the general person produces, if I'm going to get this number wrong, but I think it's like 4.4 pounds per week per person. I don't know how accurate that is.
It's probably it varies. There's a scale.
Right.
Some people are better and we're producing more than others.
Yeah. Yep.
So Christmas time, we had a lot of Amazon Prime boxes at my house. So
yeah, so as did probably everybody in our area.
What are some other things people may not know about kind of the flow of how things happen, as far as pickup and is there anything else that people should know about being better stewards, I guess, for their community and the waste and things like that, whether that's stuff they're dropping off and putting in the garbage that they're not supposed to, like batteries or I don't know what, all those different things. But
yeah, so we have a lot of people who are really conscious about what they do with waste. So we're always taking phone calls, and people are always trying to find, additional ways to recycle stuff. And we have a pretty good thumb on what we can do and what we can help people out with and what we can't. So we direct them in the right direction. But one of the things that we really like to do from an operational perspective is when we have new companies come into the area, they're usually calling us to say, hey, can you take this type of solid waste? And we also, when we have that, we'll sit down and we'll have a meeting with them and we'll walk through their facility and we'll be like, hey, did you know that you could recycle that? Did you know that so-and-so deals with this? So we try to partner people up that we may not process it, but we know people who do. So we like to kind of piece people together.
That's really good. So I'm going to change topics completely now and just talk about what you're doing when you're not working and dealing with solid waste. What do you and your family like to do? You guys live in Twin Falls?
Yeah, so we live in Twin Falls. My wife and I have been together for over 10 years. I actually met her at the landfill.
That's an odd love story.
Yeah, she was a news reporter in Pocatello, and I had just finished a meeting at the Twin Falls transfer station. I had just spilled coffee all over my shirt. I had a white shirt on, and this woman calls me and says, hey, I'm learning about your gas collection and control system, which we had just installed, and she said, could I come and do a story on you? And I was really apprehensive about it, but she just kept talking me into it and said, hey, it'll be real quick, it won't be hard. So I had to run home and change my shirt, and this person shows up, and she was real professional. She was really good at what she did, and I remember driving around with her at the landfill, and I could smell her perfume, and I told her, you smell really good to be at a landfill. And we just got to talking about our love for college football and sports and family. And the next thing I know, we went out on a date, and it's been a match made in heaven ever since. So I kind of joke because my wife has been here for about 10 years, and she knows 10 times the people that I do. But we're really involved in the community. We like to do a couple different things in the summer. We are really active, so I like to ride my bike. You go around Twin Falls on these bike paths, and you forget about what we have to offer, and it's something that you're rolling around on a bike, and you don't see you don't see that view that you would if you were doing something else. So you really find the beauty and the love for the area when you're seeing all of these things. I'll ride my bike on the bike path and just stop up on the canyon and just take a look at it every time. So we really like the outdoors. My wife is a big runner. She runs every single day. So she loves the summer when she's out there. And then in the winter, we're a big skiing and snowboarding family. So growing up in Rupert, we were really close to Pomerelle. Now we're in Twin Falls, so we've got access to Magic Mountain, Pomerelle, and Sun Valley. And we're up there quite a bit. We just went up there this weekend. I mean, we're always skiing. And my kids, I started out my older kids at Magic Mountain, and I started my younger kids up at Pomerelle. And I try to get them at a young age so we can do something as a family together. And every time we're on the lift, I like to take a look around and just tell each one of my kids, don't you love being outdoor? Look how beautiful it is, And I want to get that in their brain so they can think about those things. And they really like to be outdoors. And so we love everything that this area has to offer.
Yeah, you're so right about riding your bike and getting a different perspective. I put my son in like a little bike trailer and rode over from our house kind of across town over to First Federal Park. And when you get over there, there's just like a lot of fields and open space over there. And it was just so pretty. And I had driven over there plenty of times, but it's just, you go slower and you get to kind of take everything in. And it's really beautiful when you take the time to stop, and whether you're on a chairlift or just riding around, to take in how beautiful it is around here.
Yeah, that's one thing that, we can really take advantage of. And if you live in a huge populated area or a metropolitan area, you can do some of those things, but you just don't get the open spaces. My wife's from New Jersey, so I've been back to the East Coast quite a bit, and you see the infrastructure. And that's the biggest thing that you notice when you get to an area like this. It's kind of like you can take a step back and say they planned it through. They thought about these issues that we had on the East Coast hundreds of years ago, and we're not doing things the same way. We're doing them better. We're trying to plan these things out. And that's something that I really love about the area. We have enough people here, and we have a lot of, we've got great schools, we've got great stores. But having the ability to just take advantage of the open spaces is, it's better than anywhere I've ever lived.
Yeah. So how old are your kids?
So I've got kids as old as 16 and as young as 4 right now.
That's a big age gap.
So there is a big age gap. I've got my oldest daughter is at Twin Falls High School. My second oldest daughter is at O'Leary Middle School, and then my younger two are Emmanuel Lutheran for the full day kindergarten. So we've got the whole gamut, and I love having our kids around.
Yeah, and so the little ones are just starting to get into skiing and snowboarding, right?
Well, I like to push them a little bit. I like to get them, as young as possible. So my little girl, Charlotte, we started skiing with her 2 years ago when she was 2 years old.
Oh, really?
So we put her
How
up
did she do?
She did really good. The first day we went, there was like 6 inches of powder. So it was really hard.
Yeah.
And it was snow. It was like a blizzard up there. But the kids were like, this is skiing. This is great. There's snow all over the place. And you couldn't go very fast, and that was really good to teach kids. So as soon as we did it the first time, she was hooked,
Really?
So every time now she's like, Daddy, when are we going skiing again?
Really? Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So we just went this last week, and we make it fun for them, we'll come home and Dad's got some new ski goggles and a helmet, so they want to ski goggles and a helmet. So we make fun out of it, and they get a kick out of it too. So it's great.
Now, my little one is 2 now, and I didn't take him this winter because I thought he might be a little small, and I also don't ski, so I wanted to procrastinate a little bit, but I think we're gonna try to get him like skiing and me skiing as well next winter. But it's nice, we have lots of different options. I've been to Pomerelle snowboarding before, and that's a really nice hill, and I haven't been to Magic yet, but I've heard it's really great. And of course Sun Valley is awesome. So
we're in a good spot. They're all right there. You can drive an hour and 20 minutes, be in Sun Valley, a half an hour to Magic, or an hour and be in Pomerelle too. So we're in a good location for that.
Yeah. And what do they like to do in the summertime?
Oh, you name it. We got a little pool in our backyard. So our house is kind of the community pool.
Yeah, I bet.
Everybody comes over and they swim in the pool. So we spend a lot of time out there. And if we're not swimming, we're generally doing something in the community. My wife is really big into Rotary. So, we're ringing the bell in the winter. We're out, serving at picnics in the summer. And we're really involved in that. And they, Rotary, they include our kids. They like it when we bring our kids. So they're kind of part of the group too. So we're doing a lot of stuff in the community, spending time with our kids and doing what we can, around here.
That's awesome. I'm actually in the same club as Michelle,
Yep.
and she's like the all-star Rotary member, and I am like getting an F in Rotary right now because I'm not there as often as I should. But there are lots of really great events, community events beyond just Rotary too. But Rotary does lots of like the Ice Cream Fun Day and Death by Chocolate and all sorts of fun stuff for people to go and get involved with their families and friends. And it's a good way to meet people too if you're new to an area, and it's a good kind of community group. So
yeah, and what I really like about our community is the community groups. Everybody that we have, there are a lot of community groups, and they're all doing something different to benefit the community. Mm-hmm. And it's fun to see. I was just at a civic group doing a presentation the other day, and I asked a guy he was in the Air Force all over the place. And I said, what brought you here? And he said, my in-laws lived here, and what always stood out was the community support every time I came here. And I thought about that. That is really something that, regardless of what it is, it seems like we have a lot of community support behind, civic groups, schools, just everything in general. And I think everybody works together. I think it's really good to see.
Yeah, that brings me back to what brought you back. So you went to Washington for college to play baseball, and then what brought you back to the area?
My family. I had my family around here, and I didn't really know what I was going to do. So I thought, I love the area. I had a great time growing up. Let's see what there is to offer. And I've seen this place grow. When I was a little kid, where La Fiesta is, there wasn't anything past that. That used to be the Holiday Inn. So I've really seen this area grow, and I've seen the planning stages and the development and recruitment of people coming in. And from the time I entered the workforce to now, it's just changed tremendously, and all for the good. It's a great place to work. There's a lot of job opportunity. They're good paying jobs. The cost of living is really low here. And the community atmosphere is just, you can't beat it.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you for Michelle since she's not here, but do you know what her reaction was moving from New Jersey, coming here for the first time, and what was that transition like for her?
So she kind of goes with the flow, mm-hmm. But when she was recruited for her first job, she flew into Salt Lake, and she fell in love with the drive from Salt Lake to Idaho. Uh-huh. And you're in those hills. You've got, it's beautiful. Everybody knows about it. And she came from the East Coast, so it was very populated. She didn't have the outdoors stuff as much back there. So she really loved the views. Mm-hmm. And because she's an outdoors person too, and she likes to run outside. Mm-hmm. So if we've got a nice area to run, she's set.
Yeah.
But she really likes the fact that in Twin Falls, when she moved here, the community was so inviting to include her to be a part of the community, mm-hmm. where I think sometimes, you're viewed as an outcast moving into certain communities. This one was not like that at all. She joined Rotary, right when she came in here. She worked at KMVT, so every day she was doing a different story, and she knew everything that was going on. So she has really grown to love the area. she doesn't say anything negative about it other than her family isn't here.
Yeah.
So that's just the one downside, but I think there's so much more that benefits us as a family and a couple. Yeah. She enjoys Twin Falls and she loves her job as well. She loves the people in the community. So she's pretty upbeat on Twin Falls as well.
That's awesome. I think you're right. The open space, I think people are always surprised when they have been grown up like back east or in the Midwest, and even just living somewhere where there's a lot of trees. Like I grew up in the Midwest, and we went back to visit, and it's just a lot more trees, and you feel kind of closed in. Like trees are nice, of course, but like you feel kind of closed in, and you miss the open vistas and the big views and things like that sometimes. Yeah. Definitely different. Any other things people should know about? I mean, since you've grown up here and spent a lot of time here, and you and your wife are both really involved, things people should know about living in Southern Idaho if they have never been here before and want to check it out.
I would say it kind of speaks for itself. If you're looking at possibly moving to Twin Falls, get online and look at the stuff that we're doing. Not we, but people in the community are doing. Research the cost of things, research the economy. We've got a great economy here. And even in 2008, 9, 10, when the economic downturn was going, you didn't see that as much here. Mm-hmm. And I feel like in the next recession to come, I think we're going to be that same way because we've got people that have been planning smart in the community. They're looking for the future. Mm-hmm. And when you've got people leading the community and the community leaders planning that and working together, it's created a great atmosphere to live and to work. Mm-hmm. So I don't think, we need to talk it up. If somebody's really looking at doing it, take a look online and start to research it and see what we have to offer. And if you like outdoor stuff and open spaces and good people and a nice environment, check it out. It's a good place to be.
Which leads me to my next question. I try to ask everybody secret spots, your favorite spots, where if they are going to come here and they've checked it out, what are your favorite spots to go that they should check out?
Well, because, I like to ride my bike. I like seeing things. Down at Auger Falls, there's a little mountain biking area to go down to. Not a lot of people know about it because you kind of got to go past the wastewater treatment plant, and it's a road back there. If you don't know where you're going, you don't know where it goes. There's a lot of cool stuff back there. And really, I kind of hit the stuff that I really like. Mm-hmm. But some of the gyms that everybody knows about, you got to go down to Shoshone Falls. You got to go down. I like Centennial Park too. Mm-hmm. I think Centennial Park is the best view of the bridge, and you can rent a kayak and you can go all the way down to Shoshone Falls if you'd like.
And it's so easy down there. They've got it all set up to get like a paddleboard or a kayak, and they'll get you all set up. It's pretty nice.
And the people are so easy going down there. That's something that is also cool. One of the great things too is the base jumping off of the bridge. People come here from all over the world to do base jumping. When my wife was working for the news station, she was one of the first tandem base jumpers to go.
Really? That's brave of her.
Yeah, and then I said, I'd do that. And she surprised me for my 30th birthday. And I was like, oh man, I know where we're going and I don't know if I want to do it or not. And I did the tandem base jumping. And when I got clipped in, I'm a big guy. And the guy looks at me and he says, well, how much do you weigh? I said, like 210 pounds. He goes, oh, we're not going to be in the air very long. And I'm thinking, man, that is not what you want to tell me. But no. As soon as we went off, I mean, it was just a sensation that was so awesome. So that's what I would say is if you want to do something that you're never going to get the experience to do again, go do a tandem base jump, and it'll change your life. It was awesome. That's awesome.
I actually haven't talked to very many people who've done that. So I know our former mayor, Sean Berriger, has done it. And I think you are the only other two that I knew people do it, but I hadn't actually talked to anybody else who had. So that sounds like it was a pretty amazing experience.
It was great. When you're doing something like that, you've got so much adrenaline going.
Yeah.
That you don't remember the whole thing. But luckily my wife was in, news broadcasting. So we had video, she recorded the whole thing. And it was nice to see because when I jumped off, you could see everything and you can relive the experience. There was somebody down there to kind of, how was it? And you're still in shock because you made it to the bottom
I'm alive.
And it was great to see because my dad and my stepmom were up top and they videotaped after I made it down safe, and they were holding back tears like my son, he might have just died, but he made it alive, and they were happy. And it was a great experience, but it's something, it's not like jumping out of a plane. You're jumping off of a bridge,
Yeah.
There's not a lot of places to do that, and we allow it, and they do a safe job. They do a great job down there. And if you want a little bit of adrenaline when you come to Twin Falls, I would highly recommend doing that.
So I've always wondered, because I've seen people, climb up over if they're jumping solo. Is it awkward getting over with two people when you're like hooked in?
Well, yeah, because you're up at the top of the bridge and you're like, I don't want to fall off. So you're strapped on. You've got carabiners hooking you onto the bridge. So they're real safe about that. You jump over and you're hooked up. He's hooked up at the same time. And then you get to the very edge, and I literally had to put my heels on the very end basically giving him all of the power, to push me off, and I don't have anything to stop. So it was really good, but once you're there, they say, look, we got 10 seconds, we're unhooking, I'm going to count down to 10, and we're going to go. And we did that, and I just remember being pushed off. And your natural sense is to try to catch yourself with your feet.
There's nothing there.
Nothing there. So I was kind of like running in the air. And then by the time, you figured out what you were doing, it was too late. And by that time, you were landing. But it was one of the best experiences of my life. It was really neat.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. Yep, that's definitely a must do, I think, if people come to Twin Falls. Anything else we should share with people? Anything I missed?
I think so.
Okay, awesome. Josh, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. And thanks for sharing everything you do with the community.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and keep going with this podcast. I really, I listen to it on my bike ride, so keep it up.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Secrets Out Idaho. You can follow Southern Idaho Economic Development on social media or visit southernidaho.org to learn more. Please take a moment to leave a rating and review and subscribe so you can be the first to hear more Secrets Out Idaho. Until next time.